Andrew Berry's non-committal response about Shedeur Sanders tells us all we need to know. The Browns are keeping all options open when it comes to their quarterback position. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dawg Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Andrew Berry's telling quote about Shedeur Sanders paints an interesting picture about the future of the Browns QB room. Plus, how does Shedeur feel about all this? Does he think he did enough to convince the Browns he's the guy moving forward? We'll get his thoughts. And I think we've seen the last of Joe Bitonio. It could be a bigger blow to the franchise than simply losing a head coach. I do want to thank you for being on every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, and it's all thanks to you. Yes, Andrew Berry was asked at his end of season post-mortem, post-firing of Kevin Stefanski press conference on Monday about the quarterback situation, and more specifically about Shedeur Sanders and whether he had shown enough to this point to constitute being named or going into next year as the starting guy, as the franchise quarterback. And his non-committal answer, which we're going to play for you here momentarily, is very telling as to how the Browns are treating this situation and how the Browns are going to go about organizing and building their quarterback room in 2026. I'll play the commentary here first, but there's some very telling words in this answer that tell us all we need to know about how the Browns are going to address their quarterback situation.
I think we saw a lot of progress with Shedeur this year. I think that's both mentally, physically, playing the position. He's still very much a work in progress, like many rookie quarterbacks are. But I think we saw some really good things in terms of his playmaking, his accuracy, his ability to extend with his feet. And I think I'd also give him credit, as well as our offensive staff, for bringing him along in terms of his pocket management, his situational awareness, and things of that nature. Now, that all being said, we're going to do our work on the quarterback market. It's too important of a position, and it's something that has to be solidified. I can't sit here and tell you today, whether the solution or the starter in 2026 is internal or external, but it's something that we're going to work through, over the next several weeks. And quite honestly, the new head coach will also have a lot of input into that as well.
He flat out told you, we are going to do our due diligence when it comes to the quarterback market. He said he can't tell you today if the starting quarterback next year will be internal or external. And he told you at the end there that until they have a new coach, they can't really paint any picture as to what that quarterback room is going to look like next season, because that new coach is going to want say in how that room is structured, who his starting quarterback is. And that's a pretty normal thing to expect when you're a team that's looking for a head coach, that the head coach is going to want to say in the most important position on the field, the most important position in sports, the quarterback. So nothing Andrew Berry said should surprise people. I think it might be surprising to some, because I think there are people out there who can't see the forest through the trees on this and just think, well, Shedeur did enough. He had a crap situation around him, and those things can be true. Like, I'm not denying the fact that the talent around him on offense held the offense back, held him back. I think that's fair to say. I'm not living in denial in that world either. But I also think it would be irresponsible of the Browns to just put all their stock in Shedeur Sanders and say he's the guy after 7 starts, where there was some ups, there were some downs, there was some good, there was some bad. He's a rookie quarterback, and Andrew did give credence to that as well. The idea that we expect that from a rookie quarterback. We don't expect him to be a finished product, especially as a guy that we drafted in the 5th round. So it's not that he was anticipating or saying Shedeur Sanders didn't come along or that he didn't make progress. He highlighted numerous things that he got better at as the season went on. But it wasn't enough at this juncture for them to just blindly say, you know what, he's our guy moving forward. We don't need to address this position in the offseason. I think that's the smart way for this organization to go about it. I think you can be excited about Shedeur Sanders and the prospects of Shedeur Sanders. I certainly am. And I think he did prove more than anything over this stretch of the season. Well, a couple things. I think he proved he's coachable, that he wants to get better, he wants to be great. Those are great qualities and traits to have. I also think he proved that he can be a quarterback in this league. And as long as he continues to get better, I have no doubts he could start somewhere, whether it's for the Browns or elsewhere. I hope it's for the Browns, but if it's not, like I think he showed he can be a consistent player in this league and start and handle the responsibilities of that role calls for in the NFL. If he can just, keep getting better is the key thing here. So we'll see what that kind of looks like. We'll see how he kind of continues to progress, but there were strides made this season. The stepping up in the pocket, how he navigated the pocket, being able to take off and make plays with his legs when he needed to. The ability to push the ball down the field. Like there was a lot of good signs. There was also some signs that he's young and needs more time. And and for Andrew Berry's sake, does he have the time to give to a quarterback that needs, a runway to develop here? That's the other part of this, right? Is next year has to be about winning, and has to be about are we putting the best product on the field to win football games? Because if not, like his job's on the line now. Andrews, like there's nothing else left that he can point the finger with Kevin Stefanski now out of the picture. It's going to be on this season is going to be pivotal in terms of bringing talent along and winning football games if he's going to keep his job. So like they have to do what's best for the franchise to win. And if needing to give Shedeur Sanders time to develop isn't part of that, that's why I've talked about the timelines not lining up, then I think they have to be open to the possibility of bringing somebody else in. So again, it doesn't have to be like a shot or a knock on Shedeur Sanders that he's not maybe ready for that spotlight just yet, or that they don't think he's ready to be crowned the starting quarterback. And it doesn't mean he won't be part of their plans either. I want to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment. But to leave the option open to explore what else is out there, whether that be via the draft, via free agency, via trade, and, understand that the new coach is going to want some say in this and is going to impact how they structure that room. All of those things are very reasonable approaches for the organization to have. I think Berry's response there is very measured and is kind of the appropriate, in my estimation. You can argue whether or not he should still be here making these types of decisions, but I think that is, for that answer specifically, I think that is the right approach to take to this offseason because we don't have the full picture of Shedeur Sanders yet. I'm not expecting us to after 7 games. I don't think anybody expected to after 7 games, or they shouldn't have. But to just whimsically say he's the guy, he showed enough, I think is irresponsible if you're the GM of an organization, and that's what he's essentially saying there. So what does all this mean for Shedeur? I think that's the next part of this, because it doesn't mean he isn't part of their plans, or he won't be here next year, or he won't have a chance to start next year. I also want to get to what he said about what he proved and if he did enough to convince the organization that he should be the guy. We'll get to those thoughts and what it means for him in 2026 coming up here on the Locked On Browns podcast. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in-network nearby with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you book high-quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. I love that you can search for specialty or symptoms and quickly find the right fit. The real-time availability means you can book instantly, no phone tag. Appointments usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and they even have some openings on the same day you book. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. The draft pick positions are set, and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate Quarterback Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of the number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead the team to greatness to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number 1 QB career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment and full career control. Sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry and evolve your teammates, give input to your GM or on roster moves, play the actual game in 2D, and rise through the ranks and become a pro football legend. You'll deal with ups and downs during your football career, from your rookie nerves to playoff drama, and every choice shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want a quick game or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got a special offer for you. Use promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, Football Legend QB1. It's your legacy. All right, so Shedeur Sanders was asked, of course, in the aftermath of Kevin Stefanski's firing, about what he thinks he did in terms of trying to convince the organization that he can be the guy next year. And he gave a very Shedeur Sanders answer. And what I mean by that is, as he thought about or thinks about where he can kind of go from here, and how he can get better. He talked about using the offseason to continue to in his preparation and continue making himself a better player. But also, he's leaving it up to the powers that be. And that's kind of been his approach to a lot of things. He's in a lot of his messaging, Shedeur's messaging, there's commentary along the lines of control what you can control. And I think, honestly, that's one of the biggest things that he has kind of conveyed that he's learned throughout this process. Is like, yes, it was different for him having to start as the 4th string quarterback on this depth chart and then work his way up to being number 1 on the depth chart, and then starting and then learning as you go in real live NFL games as bullets are flying. There was a learning curve, and he's admitted that. He's talked about that. And you would expect that from a young quarterback. So certainly, he was saying all the right things there. But in a lot of his messaging, you could tell was somebody who was just trying to be supremely focused on football, just trying to be supremely focused on getting better every week, and not worrying about, like, am I convincing them? Am I doing enough? Just trying to make the right plays and stay within himself and focus on football. And I think that's admirable for sure. It's another thing I've liked about Shedeur in his time here. I don't necessarily feel he's the distraction that some make him out to be, because he has been so supremely focused on football. Now, in regards to next year, and I played you the Andrew Berry comments last segment, like, they're keeping their options open. And he spoke before Andrew Berry on Monday, so he hadn't necessarily even seen or heard these comments, obviously. But he was asked, like, do you think you showed everybody, or showed Andrew Berry at least, that you should be the starter next season? And his answer was, quote, I think I did what I was able to do, and I definitely grew from a lot of things that I got experience now. So I'm always the same confidence-wise. I'm there, but that's not in my hands. That's not my decision. I can't speak on what other people feel. So again, leaving it in the hands of those in charge. And it's the same sort of thought process he's given to a lot of situations and a lot of questions this season, rightfully so. He can only control what he can control. He feels that he has supreme confidence in himself. We know that about him. And, if he believes he's done enough in his mind, he thinks he's earned a shot. But that remains to be seen based on how the Browns how things play out with the Browns from here, what the power structure looks like, and whether or not they'll, turn things back over to him at the start of next season. Now, what a big picture. Here's what I think ultimately is going to happen with Shedeur Sanders here in Cleveland. Because, I put the question in the rundown here of, like, what now for Shedeur Sanders? That almost makes it seem like, well, he's gone. he's going to go somewhere else. And no, I don't necessarily think that happens. I think the Browns are going to remain invested in trying to see what he can be, at least for next year. And I think he's going to be part of a quarterback room that has some options. Maybe Deshaun is also one of those options. I guess that remains to be seen. I would rather he not be here, but I think financially he's likely to be here. That was something else Andrew Berry talked about on Monday, was asked about Deshaun. He said, well, and along the lines, by the way, of like keeping the options open at quarterback, he also didn't close the door on Shedeur Sanders, on Deshaun Watson, rather, potentially not being here, even though it feels like he's going to be. He said, sitting here today, I probably would say he's likely to be part of our plan in 2026 or a part of our roster in 2026, but there's a lot that has to happen. I'm paraphrasing here, so I can't totally predict the future. So essentially saying like things could change. Maybe there's a way we move on from him or get him out of here, but for now we're anticipating he's here and part of, the quarterback room at the very least. So you can expect to still have Deshaun Watson be part of this conversation in some capacity next year, this offseason. Unfortunately, I know we have to still have that conversation and go there, but it sounds like he's at least going to be here. But still, it's a room that certainly looks like it's going to have Deshaun in it. I think it's a room that's going to have Shedeur Sanders still in it, and I think he'll have a chance to legitimately, because he didn't have that opportunity, I think, last offseason. With an offseason under his belt to kind of get better, not focusing on trying to get drafted, he can just dive headfirst into, hey, I'm here to, I'm prepping for football, I'm working on football, I'm working on my craft, I'm not prepping for the draft or any of those things. He's just solely about now, like, how can I get better at being an NFL quarterback? I think that's going to be a good thing for him too. But I think like he probably is still part of the plan, and he gets a chance to compete. And we go from there. Who he competes with, those are the conversations we get to have this offseason. Maybe it's Mac Jones, right? Maybe they swing a trade for him. Maybe it's Malik Willis, whose name's been thrown around. Maybe Kenny Pickett comes back into the fold. Who the hell knows? The options are certainly endless in terms of the quarterbacks they could explore to also bring in alongside. But I still feel like Shedeur's probably still going to be here unless the new coach comes in and just patently says, I'm good on that. I don't need to deal with all this, all the fanfare that comes with Shedeur and the extra attention that comes with Shedeur, and I'm going to, go a different direction. But because Andrew Berry's still here and he had a hand in drafting Shedeur Sanders, I think they want to at least give him some time. I just don't know if they have time to commit to him as the starting quarterback right now and say, we're going to let you figure this out. We have time to develop you to become maybe that franchise quarterback. I don't know if that's true. Like, they might have to just prioritize winning football games, let him develop behind the scenes, and if he gets his opportunity, maybe then he earns it or shows what he can do. We'll see. But I think I think that they're taking the right approach to this quarterback situation. I think Shedeur's taking the right approach to it, and I still think he's probably part of the equation this year. It's just a matter of what that looks like, and that's to be determined. I also will say this. I would not be surprised. Andrew Berry doesn't take lightly moving on from especially day 2 picks. I don't know that you can bring both these rookie quarterbacks from this year back. Like, I think somebody has to go. If I think about what the room's going to look like next year, I'm not saying during the offseason. You can get away with it during the offseason. Andrew Berry talked about having 4 quarterbacks in the offseason is a pretty common thing, and that's true. So I'm not saying during the offseason, but once you get to the season next year, I don't know that you can have like Shedeur, Dylan, and then Deshaun and another veteran on this roster. Like, that doesn't, I don't know if that's going to work. Can you keep 4 quarterbacks? That's the big question. I wonder, and this is maybe this is worthy of a bigger conversation. I wonder if Dylan Gabriel is maybe the one that gets the short straw here, and if he's not here next year, especially kind of understanding what we know, that he might have been more of the Kevin Stefanski pick, and Shedeur might have been more the organizational scouting department pick. So if they want to invest in one of these guys, I think they probably invest in Shedeur. I would imagine they should over Dylan Gabriel. And what does that mean for Dylan Gabriel? So in terms of what it means for Shedeur Sanders, I think he's still here in some capacity. Dylan Gabriel's the one I think may be on the out, and I of the 2 rookies, and I think that, again, warrants a bigger conversation here down the line. Another thing that warrants a bigger conversation, the future of Joe Bitonio. Tearjerker clip coming up for you, and I think it tells us that the end is near, or the end is here, rather, for Joe Bitonio, and losing him, honestly, might be bigger than losing a coach and trying to replace him. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with the NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during the Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. The timing is perfect right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It's an extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during the NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's the NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I got a tearjerker clip for you here. Joe Bitonio was asked to reflect on his 12-year career. I'll play you the clip first. I'm not going to waste any time. And man, like the emotions were there. They were oozing out of him. I want to play this clip, and then I want to talk about what this means if he's really set to retire, because it feels that way. Why I'm reading the tea leaves and why I feel like that's the case, but then also what it means for the organization, because losing Joe Bitonio might be a bigger deal than even having to replace a coach.
If this is the end, how do you look back on your 12-year career?
With great pride. It's hard to put into words. I just tried to give it everything. So it's tough, you try and go out there and be the best version of yourself and do what you can to help the team win, and I try to do that every day. That's what I did.
Oh, man. I hope you have the tissues nearby, man, because being in the locker room to hear that, it was emotional, I think, for us in the media. Like, you saw a guy who clearly loves football, poured his heart and soul out for this game, poured his heart and soul out for this football team, frankly, and like to see him sort of processing that in the moment, that it very well might be the end, was something. And the reason I feel this probably signifies the end is, like, last year, Joel got asked some of these questions about, like, reflecting on your career and all that, and he was like, I'm not there. And there's differences this year. Maybe the fact that he's in the last year of his contract makes it feel more finite, like this actually might be the end. Maybe the fact that there's a new head coach likely coming here makes it feel more like the end, because he actually advocated a couple weeks ago for Kevin Stefanski and said he should keep the job, and he's the right man to lead this organization. So with those things being true, like, Joel said the coach decision is going to be one that likely weighs into, it's not everything, but it's part of the puzzle as he tries to figure out whether or not he's coming back. Maybe those things, the contract, the coaching change, make it more finite, that he probably understands this might really be the end for him. And he was more willing to answer questions in that candid way, where it wasn't like, I got to think about it, I'm still processing, I'm not ready. He truly took a moment there to reflect on it. It was powerful, it was meaningful, it was emotional. And listen, finding a coach is hard, and losing a coach is hard, and trying to find the right guy to set the culture of an organization is hard. It's been hard for this organization for, the better part of going on 3 decades now, since the team returned in 99. I'm not saying that that's easy or should be taken lightly, but when you think about the Cleveland Browns, one of the first people, if not the first person that comes to mind is Joe Bitonio. If you're like a diehard Browns fan, maybe not outside of Cleveland. Outside of Cleveland, I'm sure like Miles is on the radar or Denzel's on the radar, but like Joel is, and Shelby Harris said this a couple weeks ago, like he is the Cleveland Browns. And it's funny, Joe Thomas was that way, and he kind of passed the torch to Joe Bitonio. And then Joe Bitonio tried to sort of keep that same thought process and work ethic and care for the organization, that the intimacy he felt for the Cleveland Browns was there with him. And I think his goal was always to try to pass that off to somebody else. But at least on the offensive line, I don't know if that person exists. And that's why I say, losing a coach matters. That's a huge deal. And finding this right guy moving forward is going to change the trajectory of the organization massively. But every team needs a guy that's like bought into that team. And Joel's that. Like he is so much baked into the identity of this football team, the identity of the Cleveland Browns. And so while losing a coach and having to go through that process is a massive change for the org, I think losing Joe Bitonio to retirement is almost a bigger blow because he kind of bridges the gap. And I understand like it's been a lot of losing, but he bridges the gap of like he is somebody who's so ingrained in Browns history and this Browns franchise that like he can like he cares so much. And to have that rub off on other people who also care matters. And if you lose that guy, you lose kind of one of those glue leader guys on this team who can sort of show younger guys the way and show guys what it means to play with the same vigor and passion and determination and care for your teammates that he plays with. That can disrupt things just as much as losing a coach can. You know, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. I really feel this way. There's just certain guys who are, as you talk about changing the culture, who are good for that. And Joel, even though the culture didn't, I guess, flat out change here, we didn't just, totally get a culture change under Kevin Stefanski to the point where this is now a winning organization the way that Jimmy Haslam said he wants to build. Joel was at the forefront of, like, at least getting you there or making you feel like that was possible. Like, you need guys like that in your locker room if you're going to change the culture. And that's why it's a big blow that you lose him. I think Wyatt Teller talked about how he wanted to kind of be that next guy that takes the reins from Joe Thomas and then from Joe Thomas to Joel to him. And now he might not be here. Like, there's a lot of change coming at certain key positions, in the offensive line's one of them if Joel's not here especially. And so it's kind of this question of, like, who is that guy? Who is that guy that loves the Cleveland Browns so much that he's going to show you that level of emotion in the waning moments of their career and cares so much about this team? Maybe it's Denzel Ward. I mean, Denzel's talked so glowingly about the org. He's from here. That there's certainly others. But Joel is one of a kind, man. And I think that stuff matters as you're trying to change a culture and build the organization in the right direction to have guys like that. And so losing him is at least as big of a blow as like trying to identify or losing a coach and trying to identify like the right guy to lead the organization moving forward. So we'll see if it's the end for him. I tend to feel like because of how he's talking and that moment yesterday, it probably is. But maybe he gets convinced to come back at least one more year. We'll see how it all plays out. But I thought that was a cool one, a cool story, and somebody that obviously is a fan favorite, of course. We'll have plenty more for you. Lance Riesland joining me on Wednesday this week as we look back a little bit at the Bengals game. We'll break down a few plays, but we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders' future with the team. We'll talk about Kevin Stefanski and what did him in ultimately. Going to have a really good conversation with Lance. And then we're going to really be diving in head first to the coaching hire. Who makes the most sense? What names? Does Jim Schwartz still make a lot of sense for this team? All those things with plenty to talk about this week coming your way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And listen, I know you already live your team every single day, but now you can take it up a level and go ad-free. Join our Everydayer Club. Get Locked On Browns with no interruptions and members-only Discord access and more. It's all just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Also encourage you to keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you on Wednesday, Cleveland.